I am joined right now by Marissy Rose Brightman, lead actress, and Shane Alden, creator, executive producer, and actor on Against the Ropes. You can catch it on SVTV, Roku, and Amazon Fire platforms now. Uh, the show's inspired by a real life wrestler named Kayla Sparks. Some fans might recognize her from her work on All Elite Wrestling television. Both of you briefly talk about how you got involved in the project and, maybe your knowledge of wrestling beforehand.
So yeah, I guess I'll go first. I knew Kayla for many years, and we actually both wrestle. We both wrestle together. I'm semi-retired, but I work in television and film, and we had talked about the concept of a show that would be inspired by her, but not her true life story. And I think there was some miscommunication there as things went on. She really championed for it to be her true story, and since then she's kind of dismissed it, even though she approved every script and she was there for every bit of production of the film. I just think it's important to get that out of the way, that she did collaborate with us on this whole thing, but since then, she don't really agree with the branding and some of the way that we marketed it as an LGBTQ series, which it was always intended to be, and she knew that from the get-go. But I've known her for 20 years, and we collectively came up with this idea and produced it and cast it, and
That's where I come in. So I actually worked with Shane previously on another project, and he reached out to me and explained what role this was and what project they were thinking about. And I thought it was great. I was so excited. I was ready to go and learn the sport, and I knew zero about wrestling. I watched maybe one match prior, and I really had to learn a lot about the sport before going into this.
Do you remember which match it was?
No.
Did you just sit down and pick one, or was somebody like, no, this is what you should be watching?
I Googled women's wrestling. I started from scratch, and I was like, oh, let's see. I think I watched Sasha Banks, and I don't remember who she was wrestling, but I was like, oh, I am in for Rude Awakening.
Sasha's a good place to start. So
yeah.
How much in-ring training did you have to do? Like, once you actually got the role, learned a little bit more about it, the series takes place, a lot of the scenes are in a ring and doing moves, stuff like that. Like, how much training did you have to do?
Well, I showed up to the set of filming, and I jumped in the ring for the first time, and we did the moves probably a few times, I think, Shane, and we just got it. I'm a retired athlete, so I was really interested in knowing exactly what the footwork and hand placement, everything like that, the technical stuff. So I didn't have any prior training. My training was on set.
Yeah, so I can add to that a little bit, because me and Kayla did do a lot of training with Marissy, but when we first pitched this project to the director, realistically, we sat down and we said, who could do this? Who could pull this off? Because it was really important to me as a former wrestler to make sure that the wrestling was authentic and well done. So, we remembered this role really was made for Marissy. She's an LGBTQ actress, and she's an athlete and fit. And we cast her in it because we knew that she could pull it off. Even though the show is about wrestling per se, it really is more deeply an LGBTQ series and a coming of age drama. So she did do a lot of training at a wrestling school, and the students were really helpful and all that. But there really isn't a lot of wrestling in the series until like the final episode. It kind of builds up to all the things the challenges that she had to go through being a girl in pro wrestling, and learning about herself and her sexuality before she actually has her first match. So it kind of works that we didn't want her to know too much or to look like she really knew what she was doing, because the show is a slow build of training until she actually has her first match. So I think we actually talked about casting a female wrestler, and we didn't want that. We wanted an actress that could really had the acting chops to pull this off.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I was thinking, like, while I was watching, it's not like a wrestling show per se. It's a dramatic series, a coming of age series that features wrestling elements. And if you look at the past few years, like a show like Glow and more recently Heels, they're drama shows that happen to feature wrestling. So, is that part of the format, like really to pull in a more broad audience, where it's not, oh, this is a wrestling show and it happens to have these things? It was always, this is the show we want and it has those wrestling elements in it.
That's the thing. I think you just nailed it on the head. That's the thing. If you look at New Light Media Films and our other project, they're all teen coming of age stories. This one, obviously Kayla has an amazing story. I'm the real Kayla. And there's a lot of this is dramatized, but a lot of it is pulled from real experiences that she had, and she contributed in sharing these things, and she gave them feedback. But yeah, you really hit it on the head there when you said that. It's more of a coming of age and a love story. Just wrestling happens to be the thing that they do. And that's why this project was right for me, because I'm a wrestling guy first that works in television now. So I kind of realized, like, hey, if this was all about gymnastics or gymnasts, like wrestling, we can pull this off authentically, because I'm connected to the people that do it and the equipment and the wrestling school. So that's why it was a perfect story. But yeah, wrestling just happens to be the thing that they do. The real story is about love and growing up and finding out who you are.
Any shows in particular that maybe inspired you or that you paid homage to?
There's a few. So when I actually first pitched this to Kayla, there was a web series called Starting From Now. And if you Google it on YouTube, it's a lesbian series. But it's just beautifully done. And that, like, I had seen that, and it's a very big show. And I was like, hey, I want to do something like this. I want to do something inclusive, something where people, so I sent it to her, and she reviewed it. And I was like, I'd like to do this, but inspired by a girl wrestler. So I kind of went back and forth with her to get some real experiences that she had. But yeah, starting from now, that was the show that I really was intrigued by, the fact that, there's these short episodes that gets right to the point. And it really helps people that are coming out or that are struggling with who they are. And that was always kind of the goal with Against the Ropes.
Yeah, that's one of the other things that I noticed right away. It's not a typical half-hour TV show format or like a 60-minute drama. The times range. I think over the course of 8 episodes, they're as short as like 6 minutes, and they get a little bit longer depending on which episode it is. And you're starting to see that, especially with like streaming becoming, bigger every month, every year, where you kind of have that freedom to do so. Did you, I'll pose the question to both of you. Did you feel like you had more freedom, even though, you said it was inspired by Kayla's story and, it was a dramatized version of that? Did you still feel like you had room to sort of experiment with the format as you went on filming each episode?
100%. There was things from my experience. I mean, there's a lot of Marissy in this series. I mean, we cast her because she authentically, she is an LGBTQ actress, and I remembered that about her. But there's a lot of her in this. Like I know Kayla feels like we didn't do her story justice, but we're really looking for a bigger story, like a story of all these people, to inspire all these people that went through this. But yeah, the show, you made a good point with the short episodes. The show was intended for streaming, like for teens to watch on their phones. I mean, look at the platforms it's on too. We're on Roku, we're on Amazon Fire Stick. It was designed to stream and to binge watch. And today in 2022, attention spans are short. So it was important to get right to the point and cut out a lot of the extra stuff and get right to the point, get right to the heart of the matter. Marissy can tell you more, because she she really kind of helped us navigate this whole thing as far as like an LGBTQ series, because me and the director, we were new to all this. We wanted an authentic lead that lived through this stuff and had a lot of feedback.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. So I felt like I had a good balance of making sure that we were telling the story the right way, and also being able to pull from, my own personal experiences as well. So being, an athlete, and I came out at a very young age, it was a different perspective, because I remember the challenges. I remember the, locker room talk. I remember, confronting my parents. Like, it all was so familiar. So it was very important for me to make sure that Kayla and I worked together, and that we were able to really put out there, something that she was able to feel good about. Anybody who watched it was able to feel good about, and even if they weren't part of the LGBT community, if they were, into wrestling, or if they were into crocheting, it just really is about someone finding, their place in this world, finding something that makes them happy, and going for it, no matter what, if anybody, accepts you or not. So I think it opens up a lot of, room for discussion for further episodes.
Yeah, and I think, doing it in an environment or in a way that makes people feel more comfortable, I would say like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, like, they were awkward conversations, maybe to some people they still are, but having, not have it be so direct, and you can be like, oh, I saw this here, like, I can relate to it, maybe, dipping your toe into the conversation, so to speak. But would you say that, having these experiences yourself and recalling them, that it was like cathartic almost, or like?
Yeah, it's something, as as an actor, you kind of, that's what helps you be present, especially turning, words from a paper to, real feelings, and portraying that through the camera. So it's like putting yourself in the shoes of the character that you are. And I think that, all the phone calls that I had with Kayla, all the, discussions that I had with her, it was very easy to jump into, that younger part, and pushing me back to when I was, 14, 15, and all the things that I went through, it was heavy. So it's one of those things where I had a little bit of an advantage, where it felt right, and it felt like I didn't really have to feel awkward about anything. It kind of felt like I was being my younger self, just in front of the camera. And I think that that's so important, because, back then I didn't see a lot of LGBT on the TV. I didn't see girls doing, wrestling or football or any other, like, male dominant, sport. Like, I couldn't find that. So now, being able to tell these stories to, the younger crowd, and for even, the adults that missed out, is truly special.
Against the Ropes is available now on SVTV Network, Roku, Amazon Fire. But while I was doing some research, and Shane, you mentioned your wrestling background, World of Hurt Wrestling you've been involved with. Any upcoming events that you want to talk about there? I know I found one was they're promoting Big Time Wrestling's upcoming event with the Hardy Boys. Anything else you have going on in that realm that you have some interest in talking about? Oh, no problem.
Yeah, I've been wrestling a long time, and wrestling is kind of I'm more of a promoter, I guess, in this day and age. I'm getting older, man. I'm 38. This stuff gets hard, but I've been lucky to have some cool opportunities. I've been able to wrestle for the WWE, and like even more special things that I've been able to do on the independent. But yeah, I do have the Big Time Wrestling show coming up in March in Albany. Both of the Hardy Boys are going to be on it, and then I got some other big things coming up in April. So I'm excited about that. I'm just trying to balance the two of them with my television stuff. Obviously, there's talks for Against the Ropes season 2, and a bunch of things going on there. So yeah, these are busy days.